Welcome to the Jerome McClain Show. I'm your host, Jerome McClain, and let's get into our episode.
Intelligentsia, the endem of sarcasm, the nutty professor to your whack-ass marmalade. It's T-Bone from T-Bone and Chick Brew in the morning. Now available in podcast format. Simply search for the T-Bone and Chick Brew podcast, available wherever fine podcasts are sold.
Welcome to the Jerome McClain Show. I'm your host, Jerome McClain, independent media that won't reinforce tribalism. We have one planet, nobody is leaving, so let us reason together. Ding dong, the witch is dead, as they say. Ding dong, the wicked witch is dead. Kristi Noem has been fired by Donald Trump. This is actually one of the first major firings of this administration. This one has been less chaotic as the first one, and I'm going to give you some information of why.
I believe you have a policy, Madam Secretary, that you have to approve all contracts at your department over $100 million.
No, sir. I have a policy in place that I review contracts. My deputy chiefs have the ability to review anything under $5 million. Above that, I evaluate and look at.
Okay. And you do that, I understand, to try to curb waste and abuse of taxpayer money. Is that right?
Yes, sir. In fact, it's been extremely effective. We've saved the taxpayers over $13.2 billion just by evaluating contracts, negotiating lower ones, and canceling ones that aren't necessary to do our duties.
How do you square that concern for waste, which I share, with the fact that you have spent $220 million running television advertisements that feature you prominently?
Sir, the president tasked me with getting the message out to the country and to other countries where we were seeing the invasion come from, with putting commercials out that told them that if they were in this country illegally, that they needed to leave, or we would detain them and remove them, and they'd not get the chance to come back to America the right way. That has been extremely effective.
Ask you to run these advertisements, is that right?
We had that conversation, yes, before I was put in this position and sworn in and confirmed, and since then as well.
Okay. Did you bid out those service contracts?
Yes, they did. They went out to a competitive bid, and career officials at the department chose who would do those advertising commercials.
And the people that you ended up picking were people who had formerly done your political work back in South Dakota, is that right?
No, that's not correct, sir.
I think it is.
No, it's not, sir. The individuals who, I believe the careers who they chose were two different media firms. There's been conversation about their
Of course, Senator Kennedy is absolutely correct. She is lying. It was a firm that, when I looked at the research, was created the exact same week that she picked them, and they were her former staffers and friends, etc. This was what we used to call back in the day crony capitalism. The technical term would also be they are supposed to do these contracts wherever they bid on them. This would be considered a no-bid contract because she gamed the system by making sure her friends got the contract. A company that had only been in existence for 1 week got the contract because she told them about it. They popped up really quickly, probably through some company that specializes in making companies pop into existence really fast. That does happen a lot. And they got the contract even though they had done no previous work.
Subcontractors, but we have no legal authority to look into subcontractors on work like that.
Okay.
Oh, she's right on that. They have no legal authority, so they just did what was illegal. I mean, do you think that a United States president is above doing what is illegal? Thank you. Thank you for your attention to this matter.
And you're saying that you're testifying that President Trump approved this ahead of time. Is that my understanding?
We had conversations about making sure that we were telling people.
No, ma'am. I'm asking you, sorry to interrupt, but the president approved ahead of time you spending $220 million running TV ads across the country in which you are featured prominently.
Yes, sir. We went through the legal processes, did it correctly.
Did the president know
with
you were going to do
OMB.
this?
Yes.
He did?
Mm-hmm. Yes.
Okay.
And one thing, Senator, I think would be helpful to know is how effective that communications has been. That
they
overwhelmingly
were effective in your name recognition. I mean, I personally just, I mean, to me, it puts the president in a terribly awkward spot, and and I'm not saying you're not telling the truth. It's just hard for me to believe. And the president, as I do, that you said, Mr. President, here's some ads I've cut, and I'm going to spend $220 million running them, that he would have agreed to that. I don't think Russ Vogt at OMB would have agreed to that. It's something that we have to defend. I'm on the Appropriations Committee. My research shows that you did not bid them out, that you picked, in fact, one of the people you picked, the strategy group, Safe America Media was a company formed 11 days before you picked them, and that the strategy group got most of the money, and the head of that is married to your former spokesperson. Look, we all have friends who are qualified. I'm not quibbling with that. It troubles me.
And bear in mind now, this is her, Chrissy Noem, being grilled by John Kennedy, who's a Republican, but he's a conservative Republican, and saying, like, look, what you are engaged in is what if a Democrat was doing it, we say that was fraud, and it is what it is.
A fifth to a quarter of $1 billion of taxpayer money. When we're scratching for every penny and we're fighting over rescission packages, I just can't agree with Madam Secretary. Are you still running those ads?
No, Senator, I did not have anything to do with picking those contractors. I know politicals at the Department of Homeland Security did.
I understand. Are you
Career
still running
officials
those
followed
ads?
the competitive bid process for
Are you
that.
still running
Everything
those ads?
I think the ads are due to end here in March, I think within a week or two. I'm not sure of the end date. The one that is running is focusing on angel families. Have you seen that? It is the one that's talking about this is our why. This is why we work every day.
Okay.
Is for the angel families and their victims that need to.
Let me ask you about a different subject, and that is the waste of resources at your agency, the continued allegations of favoritism and contracting, and let me in particular focus on the $220 million ad campaign, many of which feature you very prominently. An ad campaign that is more expensive than the whole budget for One Fight After Another or any Hollywood blockbuster film. So let me ask you, you said that the president approved this vast expenditure on a media campaign that largely profiles you. How do you know that? Did he approve it to you personally?
Stay with us. We'll be right back.
Has anybody ever told you you were over-opinionated? How about this one? You can talk about everything you like, but don't talk about religion. Don't talk about faith. Don't talk about politics. My name is Jerome McClain, host of Jerome McClain Show, and I want to introduce you to a show called Over-Opinionated with my friend from Southwest Virginia, Josh Scott. Josh has always been told he has been over-opinionated. He always tried to hold back these opinions, but he tried to back them up when he had to say something with facts and logic. Since he's grown up in many ways, he had to change a lot of his views and his opinions, as a lot of people should. He's not a millionaire from Fox News or CNN. He's just a hard-working, blue-collar type of guy. Give Josh Scott a shot at Over-Opinionated with Josh Scott. You can find him on Patreon. facebook.com/overopinionated at 679. You can also check him out on Twitter at NRV_guy79. Overopinionated with Josh Scott. Why, he is this soft-spoken guy telling you the truth.
We talk about a lot of serious topics on this show. One very serious topic is women's health. One company that stood out to me was vslay.com because the owner is very transparent about her own struggles in the women's health department and has great customer service, great deals, and frequent sales. You can check her out, her great customer service, products about women's health, and frequent sales at www.vslay.com. That is www.vslay.com.
This media campaign was critical in telling the world
Well,
and
I'm
this
asking about the
country
president's
that we are enforcing the laws of the
I-
United States of
you
America.
testified
That if you're in
earlier
your
in
country
answer to-
illegally,
testified
then you
earlier in
should
answer to
leave
Senator Kennedy's question to the
now,
president.
or if you want the chance to come back.
Okay, guys, I'm gonna break the news to you, just so we know. I did speed this up a bit just now, so you're listening when the show originally started. You were listening to it at the original speed, 1.0% speed, and now I moved it to 1.25. So because of that, at this portion, you can go back into your apps and put it to 1.0 at this point, so it would be playing for you at normal speed. All right, because now it is, because of the length of the supercut that I made, it's gonna, I sped it up so it doesn't take more time. The supercut by itself is 22 minutes and 27 seconds, and I'm not interested in sitting here for 22 minutes and listening to Christy Nome lie, so I sped it up a bit. Here we go.
Back to the United
So my
States
question is,
someday in
how
the
do you
future.
know-
If you don't, you will be
How do
detained
you know-
and
excuse
will be
me?
removed and never get the
Madam
chance to come
Secretary,
back.
how
It's
do
been
you know that
extremely
the
effective in
president-
sending the
excuse me, Madam
message.
Secretary, how do you know the president approved of this $220 million contract?
We had conversations and worked with OMB to
So you had
make sure that
conversations
the
directly
funding
with
was
the
there.
president? Excuse me, I just want to clarify. So you had conversations directly with the president where he approved this $220 million ad campaign that significantly features you. Is that
Sir,
correct?
this campaign was talking about making sure that people knew that our laws were being
Again, I
enforced.
want to make sure that
We
we're not
continue to go through the
misunderstanding each
process.
other.
It was a
So the
competitive
president
bid
approved-
campaign. I had nothing of choosing.
Excuse me, so the president approved this expenditure?
Sir, I've been explaining this to you when it was a competitive process.
Well,
the
okay,
career
you say it was
officials at the
competitive process.
Department of
I guess
Homeland
you don't wanna-
Security
You don't want to
chose
confirm
the
the
best.
president's role in this, and I can understand why. But you say it was a competitive process, and yet this contract went to a company that didn't exist 2 weeks before they got the contract.
Sir, I can't speak
And
to that. I don't
no,
know the name of that company.
You're
I'm sure
saying you
it
can't
is.
speak to it, but let me ask you this. Are you saying it's just a coincidence? It's just a happy circumstance? It's just a
saying that-
a fortuitous event that 143 million of that went to a subcontractor that you worked with extensively as governor in South Dakota or during your campaign, that is just coincidental?
The same process was followed for this
So it's-
media
so it-
contract than any
so-
other
so
media
just a-
contract that's
just-
happened.
just a coincidence
With the
then.
Department of Homeland
And-
Security, I had
and-
nothing to do and no political
You
had
had nothing
any
to do with
no
so
choosing of who the
just a
contractors,
coincidence.
and we don't
Excuse
have a
me.
legal process for
Just a
weighing in on
coincidence
subcontractors.
also-
It doesn't exist.
Excuse me, just a coincidence also then that this $143
To ask
million
questions, you should want
excuse me,
the answers.
I'm trying to ask a question.
You're trying to
So
say that this
just-
was a political
just-
decision, and it
just
absolutely
another-
was not.
I'm just asking you. So it's just a coincidence that a $143 million subcontract went to the husband of your press person, also someone that Corey Lewandowski, one of your special government employees, worked with extensively. So that was all a coincidence, right? Because you had no knowledge of this, no
Media
involvement.
company that
and
gets
none of
the
the people around you
contract,
had any involvement.
the ability to
so
choose the
taxpayers should just
subcontractors.
assume
We don't
this
weigh
is a
in
coincidence.
on who subcontractors are. There's not a legal process for us to determine what subcontractors.
And that's the funny thing. She keeps clinging to this little word. There's not a legal process, as if you can't just pick up the damn phone and say, as if your friends don't tell you I'm making a company. It's just so dumb that in order to believe this, what she's saying, you have to believe everything. It's like us not knowing that Bill Gates got his big first break in government contracting because his mother was on a board of a company that oversaw the company that her son was working for. So his mother was inside of the government. Her son was making a company. She made sure her son got the contract. Here we have Bill Gates. This stuff happens all the time. Like I said, back in the day, we used to call this crony capitalism. In the South, in Florida, we call this the good old boy system. And that's what it is. It's a big club. Christy Nome was trying to get in it, and she got caught. She done got caught.
Are a part of a contract that goes out for a competitive bid. And only career employees at DHS were in on the choosing of those media contracts.
Then, that neither you nor Mr. Lewandowski nor your press secretary, married to the husband of the person who got this $143 million
We were not a part of the decision making.
Can you state for the record that none of you that I just described had any role, played any part, made any communication with any government agency that was involved in deciding who would get that contract?
To the best of my knowledge, none of us were involved in deciding who got those contracts for the media.
But were any of you involved in advocating, communicating, or expressing a preference?
Not to my knowledge, Senator, not to my knowledge.
Excuse me, let me just finish the question. Were any of you involved in any way in communicating, expressing a preference in any form, manner, verbal, written, with any government agency that was involved in the contracting process?
The same process was followed for that contract that is for all media contracts that have gone forward. To my knowledge, there was no involvement whatsoever of anybody that is on the political appointee side of this position and that media contract.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I yield back.
I want to move on to the use of department resources. Senator Kennedy asked a number of questions about this contract.
So now this is Senator
Senator Schiff asked about it as well, and I do too. I don't want to question what the purpose was, but how the award was made. This is $220 million. It was an advertising campaign, as I understand it, that featured you, and you on a horse at Mount Rushmore. The contract was a no-bid contract. Do you acknowledge that?
I wasn't involved with this contracting process, so my understanding is that there was many companies that competed for this contract.
The answer to that is yes or no.
I don't believe it was. I believe other companies competed for this because there was two different vendors that were chosen.
I have here a document from usspending.gov. And this document specifically states the justification for no bid contract that goes to Safe America Media and People Who Think. Those are the two entities that did the campaign, correct?
I believe it is. I wasn't a part of this contracting process.
Let's get serious here.
Yes.
Okay. Make the Safe America was incorporated 11 days or 7 days by my count before they got an award of $143 million. You have any dispute with that?
Are you talking about the subcontractor on that contract? Because we have
America.
Senator, I wasn't a part of this decision.
Okay.
We followed the same processes that have been our policies and how these are conducted appropriately.
I will go through this and then you can answer. I don't want us to be talking over each other. Safe America was incorporated 11 days or 7 days by my account before they got a $143 million contract. Now, as a administrator who has fiscal responsibility over a huge budget, do you realistically think that a company that was created 11 days before they got $143 million is in a position to execute on a $143 million contract?
Senator, I can't speak to their business model. I will tell you that since I've been at the department, I have reviewed over 10,000 contracts. I have saved the taxpayers over $13 billion by renegotiating contracts and being more efficient.
Mr. Chairman, I don't want the filibuster, all right? And I want my time back. I'm not denying her the chance to answer. I'm asking you to deny her the abuse, the filibuster. Okay.
Read that.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. I'll go through this, all right? This is on the U.S. government website that says that contract for $143 million was a no-bid contract. Public documentation says the contract of $143 million went to the Safe America company created 11 days before they got an award. That company then subcontracted with the strategy group, and you are familiar with many of the principals in the strategy group, correct?
I know one of them.
Mr. Yoho?
Yes.
And let me show you a photograph. That's Mr. Yoho standing next to you, correct?
Yes.
Now, Mr. Yoho is also the husband of your former spokesperson. Is that correct?
Correct.
Tricia McLaughlin?
Yes.
So your former assistant secretary and her husband are the ones that got the subcontract from Safe America, or from Safe America. That's what the record shows. Any dispute about that?
No, except there was no politicals, myself or anyone else besides career employees who are a part of that process,
Except
for putting out those contracts and
that's
choosing
generous.
those vendors.
But what you have is the Republican operative.
Well, you're trying to insinuate that
I'm not
I
insinuating.
put my-
I'm
yes,
stating
you're-
a fact. The fact is
You're saying that I
Mr.
weighed in on this
Yoho-
contracting process, and I did not.
Mr. Chairman, the fact is that Mr. Yoho was married to your assistant secretary. Is married, correct?
Yes, they are still married.
All right. And Mr. Yoho also ran an ad campaign for you in your gubernatorial campaign, correct?
Yes,
And he also attended your inauguration.
yes.
And Mr. Yoho received $8.5 million, or his company did, from the taxpayers of South Dakota when you ran an ad promotion showing you doing various jobs like a plumber and a dentist, correct?
Again, that was done according to the law and processes of the state of South
I
Dakota.
understand, but
Yes,
this is a person that worked on your campaign. This is a person that worked on your media plan in South Dakota when you were governor. And this is a person who also worked on your memoir. Is that correct?
On my memoir?
And he worked with Mr. Lewandowski. Is that correct?
I don't know, sir. I don't know about the business
Mr.
arrangements they have in the
Lewandowski
past.
is your special advisor.
Special government employee
Right.
for the White
And
House.
Mr. Lewandowski brought Mr. Yoho into your camp. They had worked on the Louisiana governor's campaign, correct?
No, I knew Ben Yoho before that.
All right. So the person that you knew, Mr. Yoho, the husband of your assistant secretary, is the person in the company that got the subcontract 11 days after this original company, Safe America, was founded. That's the record. So I have a question. Did Mr. Lewandowski receive any compensation directly or indirectly from Safe America or from the strategy group?
Senator, I don't have any information to that. I can't speak to that.
Would that be of interest
I think so.
for you to find out?
Sure.
Well, so will you ask Mr. Lewandowski, did he get any compensation directly or indirectly from these contracts?
Are you asking me to go ask him?
Yes, I am. Ask your special government advisor,
I can do that.
and you'll get back to
Get back
us.
to you. Yes,
All right,
absolutely.
we will want that.
Let me ask you about a different subject, and that is the waste of resources at your
So
agency.
now this is Adam Schiff, old Shifty Schiff.
The continued allegations of favoritism and contracting, and let me in particular focus on the $220 million ad campaign, many of which featured you very prominently. An ad campaign that is more expensive than the whole budget for One Fight After Another or any Hollywood blockbuster film. So let me ask you, you said that the president approved this vast expenditure on a media campaign that largely profiles you. How do you know that? Did he approve it to you personally?
This media campaign was critical in telling the world
No, I'm
and this
asking about
country
the president's
that we are enforcing the laws of the
I-
United States of
you
America.
testified
That if you're in
earlier
your
in
country
answer to-
illegally,
You
then
testified
you
earlier in
should
answer to
leave
Senator Kennedy's question.
now,
The president-
or if you want the chance to come back to the United
So my
States
question is,
someday in
how
the
do you
future.
know-
If you don't, you will be
How do
detained
you know-
and
excuse
will be
me,
removed and never get the
Madam
chance to come
Secretary,
back.
how
It's
do
been
you know
extremely
that the
effective in
president-
sending the
excuse me, Madam
message.
Secretary, how do you know the president approved of this $220 million contract?
We had conversations and worked with OMB to
So you had
make sure that the
conversations
funding
directly
was
with the
there.
president?
The-
Excuse me, I just want to clarify. So you had conversations directly with the president where he approved this $220 million ad campaign that significantly features you. Is that
Sir,
correct?
this campaign was talking about making sure that people knew that our laws were being
Again, I
enforced.
want to make sure that
We
we're not
continue to go through the
misunderstanding
process.
each
It was a
other. So the
competitive
president
bid
approved-
campaign.
excuse
I
me.
had nothing of choosing.
Excuse me, so the president approved this expenditure?
Sir, I've been explaining this to you how it went. It was a competitive process.
Well,
The
okay,
career
you say it was
officials at the
competitive process.
Department of
I guess
Homeland
you don't want to-
Security
you don't want to
chose
confirm
the
the
best.
president's role in this, and I can understand why. But you say it was a competitive process, and yet this contract went to a company that didn't exist 2 weeks before they got the contract.
Sir, I can't speak
And-
to that. I
no,
don't know the name of that company.
You're
I'm sure
saying you
it
can't
is.
speak to it, but let me ask you this. Are you saying it's just a coincidence? It's just a happy circumstance? It's just
saying that-
a fortuitous event that 143 million of that went to a subcontractor that you worked with extensively as governor in South Dakota or during your campaign, that is just coincidental?
The same process was followed for this
So it's-
media
so it-
contract and any
so-
other
so
media
just a-
contract that's
just-
happened
just a
with the
coincidence then.
Department of Homeland
And-
Security. I had
and-
nothing to do and no political
You
had
had nothing
any
to do with
no
it. So
choosing of who the
just a
contractors,
coincidence.
and we don't
Excuse
have a
me.
legal process for
Just a
weighing in on
coincidence.
subcontractors.
Also-
It doesn't exist.
Excuse me, just a coincidence also then that this $143
To ask
million
questions, you should want the
I'm
answers.
trying to ask a question.
You're trying to
So
say that this
just-
was a political
just-
decision, and it
just
absolutely
another-
was not.
I'm just asking you. So it's just a coincidence that a $143 million subcontract went to the husband of your press person, also someone that Corey Lewandowski, one of your special government employees, worked with extensively. So that was all a coincidence, right? Because you had no knowledge of this, no
Media
involvement,
company that
and
gets
other
the
people around you
contract,
had any involvement.
the ability to
so
choose the
taxpayers should just
subcontractors. We
assume
don't
this
weigh
is a
in
coincidence.
on who subcontractors are. There's not a legal process for us to determine what subcontractors are a part of a contract.
So can
It
you-
goes out
can
for a
you
competitive
state-
bid.
can you state
And
for
only
the record-
career employees at
excuse me,
DHS were in on the
Can you
choosing of
state
those
for the
media
record
contracts.
then that neither you nor Mr. Lewandowski nor your press secretary, married to the husband of the person who got this $143 million
We were not a
contract,
part of the
can you
decision
state for the
making.
record that none of you that I just described had any role, played any part, made any communication with any government agency that was involved in deciding who would get that contract?
To the best of my knowledge, none of us were involved in deciding who got those contracts.
Undeciding, but were any of you involved in advocating, communicating, or expressing a
Not to my
preference
knowledge,
in
Senator,
any way?
not to
with
my
the
knowledge,
government?
Senator.
Excuse me. Let me just finish the question. Were any of you involved in any way in communicating, expressing a preference in any form, manner, verbal, written, with any government agency that was involved in the contracting process?
The same process was followed for that contract that is
You're
for
not
all
answering
media
my question.
contracts that have gone forward. To my knowledge,
Yes or no?
there was no involvement whatsoever of anybody that is on the political appointee side of this position and that media contract.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I yield back.
So of course there was a lot more. It was brutal. Hours and hours of testimony. Cory Booker went after her really aggressively on the Democratic side. You heard Senator John Kennedy go after her very aggressively, and it was because what she was saying was verifiably false. You could look at the stench and the stank of what she had done, and her tried to say that she did not do it, etc. It was a ship too far. It was a ship too far, and everybody knew it. Everybody knew it, and this was what made it so bad for her. She involved the president, because one thing that I will say about this is that the president does not like you trying to involve him in your nonsense. He's got his own grifts to run, and that's just that. So, and this is what we have to tell you about politics in America. It's not the church. It's not a church picnic. It is not Sunday school. It is not a polite conversation over sweet tea. Politics is a knife fight in a phone booth. And so this week, the blade came out for Kristi Noem because she got in over her skis. The former governor of South Dakota, who rode into Washington, like a rodeo queen of culture wars, got fired as the Secretary of Homeland Security, not resigned, not stepping away to spend more time with her family, fired. And that is a big deal because in modern presidential politics, cabinet members usually don't get tossed overboard unless something has gone very, very, very wrong. And under Kristi Noem's watch, I would argue plenty went wrong. There were controversies piling up like dirt laundry, and in a college dorm room, and the funk got too bad. So first came the deadly enforcement operations tied to the Department of Homeland Security that triggered a national outrage. This led to 2 American citizens being murdered during federal actions, and the explanations coming from Washington were let's just say, less than comforting. Then there was this $22 million government ad campaign that looked less like public information and more like a commercial starring Kristi Noem herself, complete with dramatic imagery and messaging that made lawmakers on both sides of the aisle start asking those very uncomfortable questions. Republicans started grumbling, Democrats started sharpening knives, and then the hearings on Capitol Hill, they were not pretty. So eventually the message came down from the President of the United States, one Donald John Trump: you're done. President Trump removed her from the Department of Homeland Security and nominated somebody else, Senator Mullen, to replace her. But here's the Washington thing that is something that Washington does that I do as somebody who's from the South, the best part of the South, the bottom of the map, Jacksonville, Florida. So here's something that Washington does that I find strange. I find it a strange little Washington dance. I'll call it the Washington two-step. She wasn't exactly sent home. Instead, she was reassigned to a newly created diplomatic job called the Special Envoy for the Shield of Americas. In other words, not quite exile, but definitely a step down from running the entire Department of Homeland Security, that whole sham apparatus. Now, listen to me carefully, because this moment tells us something about power in Washington. The same political machine that builds stars can unbuild them overnight. And that should teach us about propaganda, but I'll get to that on another episode. 1 minute, you are the face of immigration enforcement, riding horses in a campaign ad, speaking at rallies, and the next minute, your badge is being taken off and you're being escorted out of a building. You've lost your desk, and that's politics, that's power. And you have to understand that's not loyalty, because no loyalty lasts forever in Washington, and no position is permanent. And the administration, left or right, all of them eventually learns the same lesson. When controversy becomes heavier than usefulness, there's the door. The door's open. Somebody gets kicked out, and it was Kristi Noem's turn. And the biggest mistake that she made is, instead of saying, I did it, she tried to shift the blame and say, and not only did I do it, the president knew about it. But she did it even worse. She never even said she did it. She kept saying, I don't know anything about it. I don't know about the decisions. I know I'm the head of the Department of Homeland Security. And it begat so obvious that obviously you knew. Everybody on your staff was getting money from it. The person that they are alleging that you are having an affair with, Lewandowski, if we didn't see the video, every time they kept saying special blah 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 advisor and they brought up Lewandowski, they were doing it in air quotes because they were basically insinuating that she's cheating on her husband. And what made this so ridiculously sad is the poor husband is sitting right behind her as they basically keep asking her over and over again in other parts of the hearing, was she having an affair? And she never flat out said no, which could have been like the most easiest question. Hey, you banging him? Yay, nay. So, there's that. And you know, when you get to somebody like me, who wears a lot of different hats, therapist, counselor, philosopher, pastor, weird person, I think about everything in this large way of how we have to think about life. So it's not just about Kristi Noem. I want to take this to add some philosophy to this, because I mean, why not? And this is gonna be what I'll just say, because I try to synthesize everything, is about the fragility of power. Anybody that knows me knows I'm interested in power dynamics. And there's an old lesson that history teaches here, and it's a lesson that history does teach us again and again, but human beings never seem to quite learn it, and that is power is in a rented space. It's in a rented house. Nobody owns it. Not kings, not presidents, not governors, not cabinet secretaries. You rent it for a little while, and eventually the landlord comes knocking. And this week it just came for Kristi Noem. For a moment in American politics, she looks almost unstoppable. Governor of South Dakota, rising star in Republican politics, irregular presence on television, a name spread that was starting to be spread all over as a future vice presidential pick, maybe even something more someday. In politics, momentum can easily make destiny. But destiny has a funny way of reminding us that it is not impressed with our resumes. One day, you are riding high, speaking at rallies, shaping national policy from the top levels of government, and the next day, your office doors are closed behind you for the last time. Now listen, this is not about Kristi Noem. We already talked about that. It was embarrassing, etc. This is about nature of power itself, because the strange thing about power is that it always convinces the person that's holding the power that they are going to be in charge forever. Pharaoh probably thought that. Nebuchadnezzar probably thought that. Caesar probably thought that. And somewhere along the way, every politician in Washington, D.C. starts to believe that same quiet lie. They are permanent. But power is not permanent for specific individuals. Power is like wind. It fills your sails for a season, and then it leaves you and shifts on to somebody else. Sometimes that shift comes because of a scandal, sometimes because of political calculations, sometimes because of the coalition that lifted you up decides it has found a better champion than you. But eventually, the wind is going to change. And when it does, the same city that once applauded you suddenly grows very quiet. And in DC, which I used to live, that I did love and can't wait to go back, Washington is very famous for that silence. The phone will stop ringing, the invitations will disappear, the cameras will point somewhere else, and suddenly you discover that the political stage is just like the arts. It's just like the theater itself. It has a trap door, and they press a button, and boom, you disappear. And here's the deeper truth of this. There is not just something that affects politics. That's the hard part of it. That this is not just a political lesson, it's a human lesson, because every one of us in our own way wrestles with the same type of illusion. We think the moments we're in right now is the moments that will last forever. The job, the certification, the influence, the title, the applause, the likes. But in order for us to be serious people, we have to look at our history, and history whispers something very different. It whispers that the same warning that the good book of Ecclesiastes gives: meaningless, meaningless, meaningless. In the end, everything is going to be a vapor. Our modern language is all temporary. Today, you are a superstar. Today, you're the most brilliant person in the room. Today, you're the headline. And tomorrow, you will be a footnote. Today, you sit at the table of power, weaved in thinking you can control it. And tomorrow, someone else pulls out the chair, and that is the remnant of history. Empires rise and empires fall. So just like empires, political careers flare up like fireworks, and then they fade into the darkness. So when we see moments like this with Kristi Noem, when we see a rising political star suddenly find the ground shifting beneath their feet, it should remind us of something important. Humility is not just a virtue. It's something we should carry as a survival kit. Because the people who remember that power is temporary tend to carry it more wisely. They speak more carefully. They walk a little slower. They remember that the crowd that is cheering you today will not be cheering you tomorrow. And at worst, they'll be booing you tomorrow. And they remember something else too. When the light finally goes out and you have to go off the stage of politics, when the office is empty and nobody has showed up for your party, when the title is gone, what remains is your character. Not the office, not the applause, just who you are. Just a person. And that, my friends, is the real test of power. Because sooner or later, every throne becomes a chair. And every chair eventually becomes just another seat in the crowd. History has a way of humbling all of us. The only question is whether we learn the lesson before the wind starts to change. I'll be right back with more on the Darrell McClain Show. We got some wild commentary to get into here.
We do not seek war. We do not seek nation building. We do not seek regime change. We are going to end the era of nation building.
I don't think we should be nation building anymore.
We will end the era of nation building.
Okay, is this nation building?
I think we have to start to entertain the possibility that Donald Trump has no core principles.
You know, it's possible he just says what he needs to say to get through the day, to whatever audience he's standing in front of, and that when it comes to foreign policy, he's liable to change his mind based on a whim or who he talked to or what his...
Or based on the context of what's happening.
Sometimes things change. Occasionally he does the right thing, too. I'm not here to say he never does the right thing. I'm just saying there's no way to predict it. Right twice a day.
No, wait, your basic argument is that you disagree with some of the that he said.
That's not what I'm saying. I'm saying
it is
there's no actual core strategy or ideology of Donald Trump's foreign policy. I wrote a whole book about it. You should read it. It's really good.
So is that what this is?
I'll give you what's killing America.
This is in your view strength. This is...
So we've long appreciated that Donald Trump has a very negative view towards the Japanese tariffs in the 1980s, the Japanese trade balance and then the tariffs put on. He views that as a way of enforcing American strength. The other thing I hadn't really appreciated is, at the same time as that was the Iran hostage crisis. And how did the U.S. look incredibly weak? What was our standing in the world? How was it viewed that we could be pushed over? Donald Trump views at the end of the day that if folks fear the United States, we are strong and we are safe. If we are not feared, we are not strong and we are not safe. And the German...
I'd rather out of control make us more safe. And why not leave the world with a positive way through?
Okay, Rena, I'm going to let you have the last word, and then we're going to go to break.
He's banking his entire foreign policy and practically much of his presidency on Iran. This could not be more crucial. You've got midterms coming up. I am a mom. Do you know how much oranges and bananas and milk costs? I know my oranges and bananas and milk are coming through the Strait of Hormuz. I'm not cutting up. I'm buying them. I'll cut up my watermelon. It is expensive. And while the milk isn't coming through the Strait of Hormuz, people start to believe that it is. And if it affects, and I was at Costco and two couples were arguing over how Folgers coffee is up double. It's almost $22 for a little thing. So people are starting to feel the pressure point, and oil is the next big thing because, the measurement that we use in the U.S. hit 90% today, 90. When you hit $90, your gas prices go up. There is no political about it. It's proven, and it happens. When people start feeling it, the pressure is on, and that's when international story becomes a
domestic story. All right, stay with us. Up next, Barack Obama goes off on his successor at Jesse Jackson's funeral, including remarks about greed, bigotry, and dividing Americans. We're going to talk about that.
So anyway, I may or may not play that portion. Political speeches at funerals are on par because of who Jesse Jackson was. To at least my community, I will say that. A lot of people, they see Jesse Jackson as only a political figure, and they don't see the ramifications of somebody like him who was in this same lane of liberation theology, black liberation theology in particular, of Dr. Martin Luther King, and him being able to run for president in 1988 as a way that it somewhat showed that there was no limits to a specific group who had been, before he ran for president, put in a certain box where they were limited. Even though he did not win, the fact that I would argue you had him on that debate stage, being able to hold his own with some people who were supposed to be the elites and taking them to task as just a country preacher. I will never forget. If you have the time and you enjoy it like I enjoy, go back and look at those primary debates when Jesse Jackson ran for president and look how he wiped the floor with some of those Democrats. And then look at where we are today, and maybe we will get back. I'm going to go to something that I may end the show with because I don't want the shows to go over an hour. But it's going to be somebody who is more successful than me, but I'm older and more good looking. But we do have the same birthday. It's going to be Saga Antonetti, and admitting that he was wrong about this war that may be happening now with Iran. And we'll talk about this on the next episode, about why this is very difficult to say whether it's a war and whatnot. But I want you to at least hear this.
Turning now to hypocrisy, something very near and dear to my heart these days, looking back a little bit on what did all these people say who are currently in power about war with Iran whenever they had a chance to make their pitch to the American people. So we've supercut a few of the people who are currently in power and some of the things that they said in the past compared to what you see on your screens today. So without much more, let's take a listen.
And I also know the cost on the American people. The trillions of dollars that we've spent since 9/11 alone on waging these wasteful regime change wars, how those wars have undermined our national security, and how they have strengthened terrorist groups like ISIS and Al-Qaeda. So when we talk about a potential war with Iran, which is looking like we are walking very dangerously down that path, what I think is important for the American people to know is that a war with Iran would make the war in Iraq look like a cakewalk. The devastation and the cost would be
May
far greater than anything
17th,
we've ever experienced
2019.
Our interest, I think, very much is in not going to war with Iran, right? It would be a huge distraction of resources. It would be massively expensive to our country. And again, I'm not saying we stick ourselves into the Middle East and start a war here, but we recognize, okay, Israelis, Gulf Arab states don't like Iran, so let the Israelis and the Gulf Arab states provide the counterbalance to Iran. America doesn't have to constantly police every region of the world. We should empower people to police their own regions of the world, right? And one, we would save a lot of money. Two, we'd save a lot of focus. But unfortunately, I think Harris, she's got this weird... I actually think she kind of likes war. Maybe she feels like a tough guy about it. I don't know why it is. And they seem to be sort of sleepwalking us into war with Iran. It's like the dumbest of all possible worlds.
I've been a recovering neocon for 6 years now. Like the foolishness with
November
which
7th, 2024.
ricocheted around the world, intervening, think it was in our best interest when really we just overturned the table and created something worse in almost every single scenario, has led to almost, the hubris of the Pentagon is that they want to now tell other countries how to do counterinsurgency based on what we did in Iraq and Afghanistan. Like, are you kidding me? So you really have learned nothing. Okay, nothing. So yeah, you're right. The trust there that our political leaders or our generals would have our best interests in mind is totally broken. It's totally broken.
I will tell you, you're not going to have a war with me, and you're not going to have a third world war with me. That I can tell you.
Yeah, I'm gonna turn into the Joker.
Pete's off the wagon again. Neocon relapse.
He's out of recovery. He needs to start back into the 12. He needs to make amends first, right? Isn't that part of the 12 steps?
A lot of amends.
There's a lot of amends that are currently to make. But I think the most potent one, Tulsi, Donald Trump, obviously. Trump actually, I would not defend. He said various different things to many people at all time.
Mm-hmm.
But JD and Tulsi to the most extent are the ones who are like, yeah, you're full of shit. And that is the one which honestly is so galling. Because, okay, I can say this in Tulsi's case. How many times have we interviewed this woman? Oh, yeah. A lot, right?
Yeah.
Sat across from the desk, looked in the eyes. What does she always talk about? Being a medic in Iraq, right? She talked about brothers and sisters. I believed it. It was, maybe I'm super naive. I believed it when I looked her in the eyes and she would talk about that. She took a lot of shit. She went to Syria to meet with Assad. It was like, basically got forced out of Congress, the whole donor machine. Hillary called her a traitor. Like, she suffered politically. And so to go from that, and then by the way, can we put E2 up on the screen here, where she literally was selling t-shirts saying no war with Iran? When we first started Rising, I'll go around the country. I would meet a lot of Tulsi people, right? She spoke to a lot of folks whenever it came to the no war, anti-war position. She went on Rogan, the no war with Iran t-shirt. Like, this was a real constituency. And I remember meeting a lot of these people across the country. So now to have her as the director of national intelligence in the Situation Room while the war with Iran launches, it's unbelievable. Then let's take a vice president. Did you hear what he said there about it would not be in our interest? I think he believed, I used to think he believed that. Who the hell knows now? But secondary was that whole thing about Kamala, who likes, that's literally how Donald Trump and Pete Hegseth are acting right now. Yeah. Pete Hegseth is literally acting like a movie character whenever he's like, we are winning, and well, screw you media for reporting on the deaths of American soldiers. Donald Trump is like, Iran is 2 weeks away from a nuclear weapon. Clearly he loves the theater of limited military operations, which are now spiraling out of control. It's like, oh my God. Look, again, you could say I told you so, and that's fair, certainly at this point. But I don't know. Are we just never supposed to believe any politician? Like, I can tell you this. In Tulsi's case, in JD's case, much more limited extent on Pete. I had been told by multiple people that he actually was scarred by his experiences in Iraq and Afghanistan and rethought a lot of stuff on Ukraine. I said, okay, I believe you. Don't believe it anymore. But in a lot of these cases, and it's not just the public officials' names that you would know. I'm talking about deputies and other people all over the National Security Council. I've met these people for years. We were at conferences and other things where, no, Iran war was like anathema. That was like the one thing we're not doing this. And so then, to not only see them in power, but working behind the scenes to execute this, you're like, what the fuck? Is this, so it was just all a joke. The whole thing was a joke. Or it's just a cult, Trump is in charge, and there's a lot of egg on a lot of face, mine included. I gotta tell you, it has been one of the most serially radicalized things that has ever happened to me. Because I've read many times in books about politicians being liars and narcissists and all that. Okay, and so what do you do? You have it, I've lived here for a long time. I had an appropriate level of skepticism. A lot of people who were working in this White House who said that they were against war with Iran took immense, professional hits for being against a lot of the so-called neocon consensus. So what do you conclude by that? You're like, okay, you have a track record, you must believe it. Yeah. And then they come into power, and it's the opposite. It's so crazy. I'll tell you that. On a personal level and on a policy level, God, it's shocking. Like, I never, ever, 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 ever thought I would be sitting here watching this and watching these people defend it.
Yeah, this is not to do, and I told you so.
No,
that's
not
the point.
Listen,
that's not the point.
But it's fair. I deserve it. I'm being serious. We deserve it. We deserve egg on our face. If we sat on the camera and we said, we don't think this is going to happen, and it happens, we got to eat shit. That's how the world works. I'm sorry. And for all the people who want to move past it, we can't move past it. We have to grapple with reality. The people we defended, the people we thought were going to come into power, who were going to do something, did not do it. Okay? Period. End of story. And that is genuinely the greatest professional disappointment of my entire life.
I think the reason why I didn't buy into the peace candidate and all that stuff is because I know Trump is a liar, and many politicians are. Trump does take it to an extreme degree, let's say. But I looked at the track record from the first term, where they were very hawkish towards Iran. You had the maximum, he pulls out of the Iranian nuclear deal. You have the maximum pressure campaign. You have the assassination of Qasem Soleimani, which in and of itself risked a war with Iran. And so that was the track record I looked at.
Yeah.
And then the other piece that I looked at is who he was getting money from, right? And since Mary Madelson was, such one of the largest donors, $100 million into his campaign, the combination of the track record and the money, and the fact that, listen, I don't have a personal relationship with J.D. Vance, so I just see him as a cynical political operator. All of these, Tulsi had already changed her stripes on any number of things, so I didn't take her seriously either. RFK Jr., kidding me, what a joke. Like, obviously, he shape-shifted a million times. And so the reason I'm saying this is just for the future for all of us as we evaluate, okay, candidates that we like and what they're saying versus what they're likely to do. The things to look at are what's the track record and where's the money come from? Because at the end of the day, those are going to be the things. And then you layer the Epstein files on top. That's another factor that I don't think I fully processed, how potent that would be in terms of apparently getting us to this place. So that was how I was ultimately looking at it going in. But I have tons of empathy for people, especially like regular people who don't follow this stuff day in and day out, who were watching the Biden-Harris ticket commit genocide in Gaza.
Liz Cheney.
Kamala's campaign with Liz Cheney. She, went out of her way to do her whole, most lethal military ever, and I, went after transnational gangs or whatever. Like, she tried to do the whole, I'm hawkish too, posturing. And, and you've got all this peace candidate rhetoric coming from the Trump campaign. It took looking, back at knowing the track record and knowing where the money was coming from. And Trump, as to your point, Zucker, he was never consistent about what he was going to do.
I can explain this. Yeah. Because this is important. So we just talked about Soleimani and all this.
Yeah.
Here was the experiment, and this is what I believe. I always thought Trump was a retard. I'll be honest. Okay. Literal retard. But what did I come away from the first Trump administration? The people around Trump, the staff made the decision, right? Basically, so you have John Bolton, Jim Mattis, Jim Kelly, John Kelly, all these people. Okay, so the promise was, and this was the project. The project was we're going to replace those people so we have better policy. And the idea is Trump is basically like this archetype who gives shits about the ballroom and not much else. And then the staff will run the show. That's what I thought was going to happen based on the first term. Okay, and so what did I know? I knew the people working. So yeah, money and all that. I always knew the Israel thing. You can go back and check what I said. I literally said if you're pro-Israel, you should vote for Trump. And I was like, if you're pro-Palestine, you should not vote for Trump. Yeah. Go back and look at what I said October of 2024. I
remember that.
We were all very clear-eyed, but we had a belief in two things: Ukraine and definitely Iran. And the reason why was that the new people, the type of people, the vice president included, led a project in the United States Senate and behind the scenes for years specifically against Ukraine and Iran. Yes, I was there. I remember it. And so there you go. That's where the belief came from. Well, you did this, and this. You took a lot of hits professionally over the years, even picked fights, organized this entire group and staff of people who all told us over the years that you were going to do something. And then you came into office, and now you're doing the opposite, right? And look, let's be also fair in this regard. Trump is a big boy, and maybe he just wanted to do it. Maybe these people were against it. I don't know. But at the very least, it's not just that you couldn't stop it, but then you have these people who are out there defending it. And the truth is that not only have we watched how people are so untethered from what they previously said in the past, but that they're willing to literally go and openly humiliate themselves on television. So do we have the Stephen Miller? I think you were about to toss that too.
Yeah. E5. I mean, and this is too. I think Stephen Miller is actually an important character. We'll just call it in all of this. But I mean, he was as clear as he could be. Here, the first one, he's responding to Cenk Uygur. He says, "I don't know how I can be more clear. Trump will end and prevent war in the Middle East. He wants peace. Harris and her neocon cabinet want war and more war." Another one, Kamala will send your sons to war. Another one, if young men don't want to be drafted to fight in Kamala's and Cheney's Third World War, they better get out and vote for Trump. Another one, Kamala's top military advisor is Liz Cheney. If Kamala wins, Liz and Dick are running foreign policy and they will invade the Middle East, okay? Now, I think another thing, Stephen Miller is extremely influential. They call him the prime minister internally. We got a glimpse early on in those signal conversations when they're debating about the Yemen strikes. And Stephen Miller comes in and says, the boss wants this, so we're doing it, and it's end of story. No one says a word or peep, there are no more objections raised. That's it, it's a done deal. And Stephen Miller is a racist who absolutely hates Muslims. And I think that is a part of the story here internally of what's going on. You have not only him, but we're gonna talk with Emily about Pete Hegseth, who's wrote a whole book about how he's itching to do Crusades 2.0 because he wants American Christian warriors to fight against the Muslim hordes. And so that is an important strain of ideology in this administration as well. But there's no doubt that they lied to the American people. We did focus groups with the AOC Trump voters, and I was surprised. I thought Gaza was important, but I was surprised at how many of them brought up war and peace, and not just Gaza. They genuinely believed some of the rhetoric coming from Stephen Miller. And, it is fair for people who are looking at this to have some belief, and you've got all of these figures within Trump world saying absolutely not, no more war with Iran, we got to learn the mistakes in the past, blah, 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 to put some credence in that, even as you know that, Trump is a liar, blah, blah, blah. So it is a disgusting betrayal. It's not that it was not predictable. Many people did predict it, saw it coming, etc. But that is true, and it is also true that it is an extraordinary betrayal of the American people and what many people genuinely thought that they were voting for with this administration.
Yeah, exactly. And look, put E7 up there on the screen. They said they were the peace ticket. Now, you could say, okay, yeah, you shouldn't have believed it. I just gave you the whole thought process. I'm not going to say, oh, they're super anti-war. I never believed that. I said, okay, the two things which are actually winnable are Iran and Ukraine. Those are the two things. I was like, I think we can get that based on Trump and everybody else who was coming into the administration. There were some early signs. The Steve Witkoff stuff, remember? Ceasefire with Israel. That was good. You're like, oh, okay. And then we start to get to where we are. It was pretty obvious by Midnight Hammer that they were totally in control. And from what I've heard, Tulsi, I mean, I'll give her a little bit of credit. She spoke up against 12-day war. From what I know, guess what? She got nuked, basically. Do not invite to Venezuela.
She has to resign.
And now she's crawling her way back.
She has to resign because her whole brand, she literally sold t-shirts that said no war.
She's got nothing left now. She's done. All right, her only chance is to continue to suck up to Trump.
If she wants to preserve any shred of dignity, soul, whatever, you would have to resign. But apparently that shred of dignity has already been sold.
If anything, she's gone all in. I hope she got a lot of money from those t-shirts because when the Democrats are in power and this Fulton County stuff is happening, I hope you have a lot of money to survive some subpoenas. You're going to be looking at $200,000-$300,000 in legal bills from whenever that comes. So good luck to you and to the Gabbard family. But if you think also about all the others, I'll make a case, right? And this is what I always hear behind the scenes. What are they supposed to do? They can't do anything. They don't have any real power. Bullshit, in my opinion. Tulsi, you can resign. There are a lot of other people, Pete Hegseth and others. I mean, they literally said the opposite in cases. And look, to be fair, there were also clips of them floating around out there where they were very hawkish. Pete in particular. I chose not to believe it. There were many people who said interviews and the positioning. They're like, it has changed. It's legitimately different. I mean, Stephen Miller's on television today. The Trump doctrine is isolationism. America first does not mean America alone. We're all, a great, powerful military. Iran. To be honest, I actually think he was against some of the wars previously. I remember talking to the people who knew him. I mean, that's why it's so crazy. But what you have to do now is it's all about just pleasing Trump. And from that point, Trump has literally, in many cases, almost never inserted absolute total control over any real foreign policy portfolio. He really was relatively blank slate, deal maker, etc. Again, that's why I thought the staff would be highly, highly influential. But clearly on Iran, he was the primary mover here. I don't think he was pushed into this. I just want to be that very clear. He was the person who made the ultimate decision. Yeah. And I'm still trying to figure out that story. I still don't know.
I feel like he also has bought into some of the messianic hype around him himself after surviving the assassination.
Midnight Hammer too in Venezuela. It's like you said. I mean, he's a gambler who he's like on a hot roll on a craps table. Like he keeps getting. But ultimately, again, if you read enough history, it's like, oh my God, stunning success, and you start to believe all the hype, and then boom, you slam into a brick wall, and then you invade Russia. Right? And, what ends up happening?
Yeah. No, I mean, it's. I think he talks about his own mortality a lot.
Yeah, lately.
He's thinking he apparently does not believe he'll be getting into heaven, based on what he said. I would say if there is a heaven, I think that's probably a pretty accurate assessment. And he's thinking about his legacy. And so along with, some stupid arch and friggin' ballroom and the drapes, the other thing that he wants to establish as his legacy is like these wars. That's what he's decided. That's his way to make his mark on the world. And so here we are. And that's a good transition to talking about some of the, I can't even call them religious undercurrents because at this point, it's such a dominant talking point. And for me, as someone who is, I'm not a religious person, totally secular person, I don't factor in when I'm thinking about geopolitics that you have these fanatical religious zealots who are ideologically committed to, this end times ideology, many of whom are in high positions of power here in Israel, and also Iran is literally a theocracy. And so we wanted to bring in Emily to, to shed some light on the specifics of what this ideology is and just how influential it has been in bringing us to this place.
Let's get to it. Hey, if you like.
So look, let me let this play because that was Breaking Points. We one of our sister shows. We support Breaking Points here, Crystal and Saga, yada yada yada.
Yeah, video, hit the like button or leave a comment below. It really helps get the show to more people.
And if you'd like to get the full show ad-free and in your inbox every morning, you can sign up at breakingpoints.com.
That's right. Get the full show. Help support the future of independent media at breakingpoints.com.
So I'm one of those
turning now hypocrisy.
Whatever the heck you call it, members. Whatever. I gave the big bucks. That's all I could say. I don't know what I got. I never got the book from them because of COVID. But either way, I think the analysis there was pretty spot on. What they said then versus what they say now. And when it comes to me, I'm only frustrated in the sense of what I'll just say is me watching Donald Trump become George Bush. And this is painful for me personally because I think I've said it on this show several times. I was a neoconservative because I grew up on conservative talk radio. Rush Limbaugh, Bill O'Reilly, Neil Boortz, Dan Savage. Liberalism did not penetrate my brain. It just didn't. I did not know that was what was happening when I was growing up, but that's what was happening. And so when I joined the military, I very much joined with the neoconservative perspective, and shortly got that exploded. It's easy to support a war in the abstract. It's harder when your friends are fighting it, and a lot of them are dying and not coming back. As you sit there in the United States military and you're watching the results of your vote. And ladies and gentlemen, that's where I have to say something, and this is how I'm going to end, because what I'm going to say is going to make a lot of people uncomfortable here. But the truth has never been polite, and I don't think history, at least when it came to me, has never been gentle, or it's never given me the illusions. What I believe is we are living through one of the strangest political transformations of the modern era. A man who rose to power denouncing the failures of Iraq now finds himself walking down the same road that led America into Iraq. And if you've been paying attention, you can feel the deja vu. Back in 2003, and bear in mind, I'm scheduled to graduate from high school in 2004, so this is the context that I'm coming to this in. In 2003, George W. Bush stood before the country and told America that they were invading Iraq, and it was about security, freedom, and defending civilization itself. The language was moral, theological, evil regimes, dangerous weapons, a world that had been reshaped for the sake of peace. There were people in the Bush administration who now admit that they were listening to the dispensationalists, that they were following John MacArthur, etc. And now 2 decades later, they're watching Donald Trump, the very man who mocked that war, who ridiculed the neoconservatives, and told the American people that foreign policy establishment had lied to them, start to sound eerily similar, eerily familiar to the same regime that he once bashed. It's not identical, it's history. And history rarely repeats itself word for word, but it does rhyme, boy. And the rent is exactly the same, because power has gravity. Every presidential campaigns makes their candidate campaign as an outsider who will tame Washington. They promise to resist the machine. Bill Clinton said the era of big government is over. Remember that? And Donald Trump says, I'm going to drain the swamp. So they say they'll drain the swamp. They say the era of big government over. They say they'll dismantle empire. They say they'll bring the troops home. And then they sit in that seat of power. And the intelligence briefings arrive. The generals walk into the room. The allies come from overseas. The think tank starts writing their memos. Op-ed starts happening. They start reading Foreign Policy magazine, etc. And slowly, almost invisibly, the chair reshapes the person. Bush entered office talking about humility in foreign policy. He warned against nation building during his 2000 campaign. Then came September 11th. The world changed, and suddenly America was told it had a mission not just to defend itself, but to remake the entire regime of the planet. And the mission became the defining project of a generation. The United States invaded Iraq. Trillions of dollars were spent. Hundreds of thousands of people died, and an entire region was destabilized and has been destabilized since then. And here's the uncomfortable truth nobody in Washington likes to say out loud. The people who supported that war were almost entirely never held accountable for being wrong. The Bill Kristols, the David Frums, the Dick Cheneys, etc., the Bush, never held accountable for being wrong. They actually moved into television studios. They joined think tanks. They wrote books explaining why their failure wasn't actually really failure. It was the fact that the American people got tired of troops dying, etc. But the soldiers, the poor people, the taxpayers, the poor peoples, the families who buried their children, they paid the bill. And that's why the rise of Donald Trump shocked the political establishment, because millions of Americans were tired of that type of empire. They were tired of hearing that every war was necessary, every intervention was noble, and every failure was somehow a success in disguise. Trump tapped into a frustration. He stood on that debate stage and said what many politicians were afraid to say: the Iraq war was a disaster. And for a moment, just one moment, it seemed like American politics might actually learn something from the last 20 years. But Washington is a very powerful place. It's like a powerful river, and rivers have currents. If the United States drifts another major conflict in the Middle East, especially one with Iran, then the political irony will be staggering. The moment that rose up is the thing that created the movement that rose up as well. And that movement that rose up was to reject the Bush doctrine. And damn, Trump is following to the T the Bush doctrine. And he's doing it, and we will have to look back and say it actually never ended. It never ended. Trump is hyper-focused, and he is recreating it. Different slogans, different personalities, same ideology, same trajectory, more than likely, same outcome. And here's the deeper lesson than the one that should have humbled us. Every ideology in this country, the real problem isn't just the president, it's the system itself. Because whether the president is a Republican, a Democrat, a conservative, a populist, a socialist, a war hawk, a self-proclaimed nationalist, Washington keeps pushing towards the exact same conclusion. More intervention, more influence, more management of the world, more world police. But a republic was never meant to run like it was an empire. The founders warned about this 200 plus years ago. They feared standing armies. They feared foreign entanglements and the seductive idea that America had a divine mission to control all global affairs. Empires promise security, but they deliver exhaustion. They drain the treasury. They expand their surveillance state. They concentrate power in the executive branch and steal it away from the common people, normally who reside in the cities and the states. And eventually, they forget the difference between defending their nation and policing their nation while they police the planet. So the thing that I want us to think about today is that the question isn't really about Trump. It's not even about Bush. The question is whether America has the wisdom to recognize a pattern before history repeats itself. Because if we keep walking the same road, we shouldn't be surprised when we arrive at the same destination. And history, my friends, has already shown us what waits there. The great Einstein has the quote, "Insanity is doing the same thing over and over again and expecting different results." And so I ask the audience, as we ask America, as we ask the president, are we insane? Thank you for tuning in, and I'll see you on the next episode. Thank you for listening to today's episode. Of course, if you want to support the show, you can do so by going to www.patreon.com and getting a membership for as little as $3 a month. Again, that's www.patreon.com/The Jerome McClain Show. The Jerome McClain Show is fully listener-supported, independent media that won't lead you to tribalism. Get a membership and support independent media at www.patreon.com/The Jerome McClain Show.